What's poppin', YouTube? Welcome back to the Nick Mo Photos motovlog. Today, it's Therapy Monday. Let's roll the intro. So I'm a huge advocate for mental health. You know, as a person who has been diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, depression, difficult at times to remember and feel what it felt like when I had the onset of all my mental health issues. You know, I was served in the Army, served in the Marine Corps, and then served in the Army. And I was medically retired due to post-traumatic stress disorder and my ability to do my job. I wasn't an infantryman, I wasn't an artillery person, and my military occupational skill was 46 Romeo, broadcast journalist, and I went to advanced individual training at Fort Meade, Maryland, the Defense Information School, and the course I took was Basic Combat Correspondent. So it's exactly what you think. Every video and photo that you've seen from deployments, either on the news or in movies like Restrepo. So there's two sides to public affairs. There's the production side, and then there's also the escort side and the media facilitation side. But the guys that did the film Restrepo, they were civilian. It was Sebastian Unger. Amazing book that he wrote called Tribe. If you're having a problem fitting in, or if you're having a problem adjusting to life, transitioning from the military to civilian life, I strongly recommend that book. It's pretty amazing. I did it as a part of a group at my vet center where I get my mental health counseling at, and it helped things fall into perspective. So then again, that's a little bit of background. Deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, and seen the best parts of life through the lens, and I've seen the worst parts of life through a lens. So for a long time I was jaded. I wouldn't pick up the camera. I wouldn't have any motivation to be creative. And I thank God that with therapy, surrounding myself with quality folks, good people, I was able to overcome that fear and that anxiety. I was able to see beauty back through the lens. And that's something that I am eternally grateful for. You know, but it took a hot minute. You know, it took losing friends, relationships, losing part of myself. You know, but with therapy and getting around the right folks, it has literally changed my life for the better. So like I started this, I'm a huge advocate for mental health and ensuring that people get the care that they need in the time that they need it. You know, I remember I was in a time and I was at a point where I knew something was off, but I didn't want help. And it was one of the darkest times of my life, where contemplating suicide took up the most real estate in my mind, because I thought that nobody understood. I thought that nobody has experienced what I've experienced, And even in that, the things that I had to combat internally, I used to devalue my service and devalue what I've done for my country, because I wasn't at the forefront. I wasn't an infantryman. I wasn't a ranger. I wasn't a Green Beret. I wasn't an artilleryman. I wasn't shelling rounds downrange at the enemy. It was my story. It was my job to tell. It was my job to tell the soldier story. And in that, I found a huge honor. But being that when we deployed, we were independent operators. So I would bounce from company to company, battalion to battalion, battle space to battle space, in search of a story. And I don't have that that bond that a lot of soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, that they get when they're deployed with their fellow battle buddies. So I say that to say this: I felt alone for a long time, and I was in my own head. It was when I started going to therapy. I went to I was stationed at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and my therapist there recommended that I go to the Denver, Colorado VA, because they had an inpatient PTSD program. Now mind you, I was still active duty at the time, and it was very sombering, because I could see my career coming to an end. And I've achieved a lot in my military career. You know, I always strived for the best, to be the best. I was a member. I was inducted into the Sergeant Artie Murphy Club, which is a pristine organization reserved for the top 5% of non-commissioned officers in the Army. I was promoted to Sergeant First Class on my first look, and in my career field, that was a pretty difficult thing to do. But anyway, so I had all these accolades and all these things, but yet I still felt empty inside, because I couldn't validate myself as a person. And started doing modalities like Trigger, trauma-induced guilt reduction, CPT, cognitive processing therapy, and exposure therapy, and EMDR. I forgot what that one means, but that's the one that you look at the lights and then you revisit yourself in the emotional state that you were when the trauma onset. And it wasn't until I started to openly pursue getting better that I decided that it was time for me to go all in at it, you know, with that same fervor and that same passion that I did once while I was in uniform. So fast forward a few years later, you know, I was medically retired from the Army, and I moved to Florida, and I thought, oh, civilian life would be perfect, you know, be an easy transition. No, very difficult transition for me. Got plugged into my local vet center here in Tampa, and that place changed my life. My therapist, Mike, he told me one time, he's like, hey man, you change your environment, you change your life. And not really fully understanding or comprehending what he was saying, I was like, okay, yeah, you don't know me. But until I fully grasped that idea or that notion, and it became my motto. And unfortunately, I had to cut a lot of people out of my life. I had to cut people out of my life that just weren't good for me. And I mean, friends, fellow service members, you know, I had to cut everything out and in a sense start over. But in doing so, I learned more about myself and what I need Not what the group needs, not what my significant other needs, not what my best friend needs, but what I need to be healthy. And I tell you what, once I started to implement those strategies that I learned about in therapy, my life started to change. Relationships started to shift. And it turned me from a yes person to a, nah, that ain't good for me, dog. Or, nah, that ain't me. You know, it gave me the understanding to make a decision for the betterment of my mental health. You know, so I would encourage, if you're struggling, if you're a vet on the verge of an explosion, reach out. Hit me up down in the comments. One of the best resources that we have as veterans in the veteran administration system of the VA is the vet centers. Now, this is something that is specific to combat veterans. So to get seen at the vet center, you need to furnish a DD-214, and on that DD-214 it needs to have seen that you were forward deployed to a combat area or a hostile fire pay area. So that put me at ease already, because I knew I was going to be with like-minded people, or people that have been where I've been and seen what I've seen. So the anxiety behind that was immediately gone. And then once I really started to embrace therapy and see the good that it can do, it was a wrap. You know, that changed my life. I'm in a much better place now than I was. But the thing is, I haven't arrived. You know, we're a work in progress. Like when I was at the O-Guard up in Arlington, Virginia, we used to have this saying: we're constantly in the pursuit of perfection, knowing that we'll never attain it, but that we will be better than we were before. That we will put forth every effort with every fiber of our being to be better than we were before. So it's with that same passion and that same fire in my belly that I hit my personal mental health issues head on. It takes courage to open up. It takes courage to say, hey man, I'm down on a knee right now. I need to pop some Motrin and drink some water because I want to get back in the fight. That's courage.